Okay.
Actually, I'll just save this for later.
What is Formula One, Nate?
What is
Or
it?
hold on, let me ask. Before you got into it, like a couple years ago, what did you think Formula One was? Or have you heard of it before?
Honestly, I'd never heard of it before. You even like showed me, or the the Santa documentary type movie?
And that was like your first experience with it?
I'm closer.
No, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
But yeah, that was pretty much my first like F1 experience.
So your first experience was the Senna movie?
Yeah.
How'd you like it? I know everyone else said they thought it was pretty nice.
I thought it was pretty good. Honestly, I kind of like forgot about it for now, because we watched it
We watched it freshman year.
Yeah.
Would you want to watch it again?
Probably, yeah.
Knowing what you know now.
Yes, because that's how I liked watching what was it, Rush?
Oh, that was the first. I remember you came back after the break. You said, I watched Rush and I want to like watch
the F1.
I want to watch Formula One.
That's kind of like also what got me into it. But first that movie came out and then you showed it to us.
Well, that movie came out in 2013.
I know, but like you showed it to us that year. And then what was I gonna say? Oh, but like back to Rush. Like after watching that documentary, I got like, what was it? I think it was summer break.
You came to me like with Formula One, like you came to me with Formula One. Probably. Because what did we watch? We watched. You didn't. I know you weren't. You weren't watching the 2021 season with me yet.
I didn't start till like, I want to say mid-ish 2022 season.
I know you watched. I think like Imola. No, you watched Saudi Arabia was the first one you watched because I remember we had to wake up super early for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the first one that you watched because that's the one that Perez did good. Then like became shit afterward.
Honestly, I just remember from Monaco, really.
From Monaco?
Yeah.
That was the first one you remember?
That's like the latest race I can remember.
Well, that was a good race. Perez won.
Well, you biased.
I mean, am I biased? We have a picture of a man behind this.
The hottest driver on the grid.
That's debatable. Have you seen Alonso when he was...
That's true.
Just wanted to look up a picture. Okay, so you got on Formula One when I used to watch it. Did you ever... What's a good like way of putting this? Did you... Do you like see F1 as like a dangerous thing, or is it like...
Not necessarily. All the drivers like seem capable of like keeping themselves in check, I guess. Like nothing to the point where like that one crash you showed us, like me and Jonas, where everyone was like...
Oh, Belgium, yeah.
But I don't know if that was like a driver accident or like just natural. Did they have to say it twice?
Oh, we'll be fine.
Okay. But I don't know if that crash was like a driver accident or like just a natural kind of like because of the water and stuff.
So like bigger crashes like that. So this is Belgium 1998. This is when everyone crashed at the very beginning. I just want to put it up, but
it's too difficult. I'm sorry. Oh.
That's the point. Like, I'll cut this out later, but the whole point is like it's just two people talking. So, yeah. Bigger crashes like that, they really don't happen all the time. Although there was one season, I think it was 2016, where the first lap of every race there was like a pretty big accident. And I don't think it's because like those cars were dangerous at all. It was more of like, it just happens. Like the chance of happening a crash happening on lap one has always been really high. But so it's like, it's like flipping a quarter. It's 50-50, but like you might get 5 tails in a row. It doesn't mean that it's like any more tails. It's just you just keep having to get that certain draw every single time.
But yeah, like back to that question you asked, like I don't think it's really like dangerous. Like it seems like safe enough now. Like the only biggest crash being really like the one with Joe and
Even that one, I knew he would have been fine. The only scary part to that was like he was just trapped. He couldn't get out.
Because he was like flipped over. I'm pretty sure when he landed. So.
But like I mean, if you see like the fan videos, it's pretty like slow. It's not happening like fast. So he gets upside down unless there's no big impact, and when he starts flipping, I mean, sure it's like big, but even when he hits the fence, it catches him, which is like that's what it's called, the catch fence. So
because on TV, like I don't know if it was TV or like the fan videos, like one looks faster than the other, but one looked a lot like slower, which made it seem like okay, like it didn't seem too bad, but it was still kind of bad. Like
yeah, no, I mean it was definitely like serious. One thing that people like just didn't see was the Albon. He went head first into to the wall, and he actually was more injured than Joe. I don't think he missed the. He did miss the race, no? Because that's when Nick DeVries.
That was Monza.
No, okay, so that was a couple.
Because he had the like.
He was sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't miss the race, but he couldn't get out of his car for a minute. He was pretty knocked out because he hit the wall first and got like back on the track, and then someone hit him from behind. So that one was more worrying than Joe, but I mean, it looks scary. Actually, a few years before that, what's his name? Do you remember Daniel Kvyat?
Yes, the one
He was a Russian driver.
Vettel calls him like the tornado or something.
Yeah. The torpedo.
Torpedo.
So like that, like, do you remember the layout for Britain? Yeah, it's fine. But there's a section that's really fast called Maggots, Beckett's, and Chapel, I think. Could be wrong. But it's a section of S's that are really, really fast. And on that entry, you're probably hitting about 170. And he basically just went straight left at like 170 and went straight into a wall. Like, there's no tires, just concrete. And that one was like, looked really bad.
There was one actually I saw earlier online. It was Alonso. I think he was with McLaren at the time. He also like kind of went straight into a wall.
Do you remember which one that was? I think it's So, yeah, that's when he was with McLaren. So that one was a pretty.
Yeah, like he slammed into the wall, like he like flipped over and everything.
Yeah, so that was 2016 Australia. He missed. Well, there's a debate about that, but essentially, Esteban Gutierrez, who was the Mexican driver for Haas at the time, kind of braked a little earlier, and when Alonso went to go on the outside to overtake him on the outside for the corner, he hit his rear tire because he braked early. Then that's when he slammed off the wall, flipped, and everything. That one, I'd say, was probably the scariest one I'd seen in a long time.
Because he also ended up with like broken ribs, I think, right? Or something like that. That's what it said in the. I don't know for sure.
He had a broken rib, which that hurts. Like there's a lot, and the fact, I mean, he got out pretty quick, and he said he wanted to get out so his mom saw that he was fine. Because what a legend. But like I've seen the accident on so many memes where it's like a football player or soccer player, and they're like crying on the floor after being touched, and then it's like this motherfucker after crashing at 320 kilometers an hour or 190 miles an hour, and it's like, yeah, like these cars are pretty safe, and that was before the halo and everything, which it wouldn't have done much in that situation, but at that corner specifically in Australia, like we've seen many accidents there. The same reason, it's just someone brakes early, you hit the rear tire and you catch air, and usually like you end up in the fence or you end up tumbling down that little escape road. The first race they had in '96 that happened. Driver was fine. The next time it happened was in 2002. The drivers were fine, but a marshal died because a tire went through the fence and hit him.
Damn.
And that was before we were born, so I don't remember that. But I remember watching it as a kid. Here, do you think you could put this one up?
Did you send it through?
So like, do you remember anything like specifically from the 2020 season that
2020.
like any accidents besides Joe that was pretty big?
2022, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, you said 2020.
Oh, no. You weren't even watching that.
2022. There was a little like thing with what's his name? Lewis and Alonso, but it wasn't like a crash. You know, when like I don't remember who kind of got lifted up. I think it was Alonso. It was a Spa, I think. You know what I'm talking about?
Alonso got lifted?
I think so.
Oh, that was the US.
Not the wheelie one. Okay.
It's on it there. If you go on the document.
Oh. Is it this one? I have to back out of this first, though.
That's all right.
They're gonna see an anime girl. Is that fine?
Bro, it's fine. It's character. It looks good. Isn't that from Fate?
Yes. Oh, the sound's connected to the...
Oh, it's alright.
And there we go.
We're not gonna really hear it. So yeah, that's like right there. And I don't know, it doesn't look that bad, but when we were watching live, like it just cuts to like this shot right here. So all you see is just, oh, maybe not this one.
I feel like some cameras make it look a lot more
this is the one we saw. That was the first shot we saw. And you can see that there's big damage to the chassis. That's what you have to like look for. The chassis is like where the nose is disconnected. Everything after that is like what's supposed to protect the driver. Well, everything does, but... Alright. Yeah, so... like right... Everything on the car is kind of meant to protect the driver, but like the main like block that's supposed to like keep them like safe in the event of a crash is the tub, and that's right after the nose. And it was, you knew it was bad because that was straight concrete, and when you go on the outside views, you see that like that tub is like dented in, and you can sometimes repair it, but for the most part, it's just like you can't repair that because you need to put like it's all made at like one time together because it's kind of hard to explain. Yeah.
Also, I just want to point out something. Where is the radio? Where it's like after a crash, you'd think most drivers are like kind of thinking about themselves, but then he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Because this is so in 2020 this was supposed to be the last year of these cars.
Mm-hmm.
So the regulations were pretty open. This is when Mercedes had their DAS system, and like the cars were just really fast.
Mm-hmm.
These are probably the fastest Formula One cars we've ever seen, and they're even faster than the current cars by like a few, like I think it's by like 4 seconds. They're maybe not, but they were a lot faster. Straight line, corners, everything.
Mm-hmm.
Even Hamilton said like he got to drive his winning car like a couple years ago, or no, well last year, sometime throughout the year, and he said like he forgot just how good it felt, and it's so much different than because now they're so heavy, and then with the suspension, they act more like road cars than they do Formula One cars, and these were the last cars that like were truly just like insanely fast. But Pirelli, because they were focusing on the next generation of tires, didn't update the tires.
Mm-hmm.
So this race, there was a bunch of tire failures because they just couldn't handle the speeds that the cars were going.
Does that mean they'd have to like pit more often too? Cause
Yeah, this is the race that Hamilton won on 3 wheels. So in the last lap, he was so far ahead from Verstappen that he got a puncture halfway through the lap and won. Yeah, they F1 called boring now when there's like no one's battling for the win, but it was.
But then you could say like it was like that for all of Mercedes kind of domination, right? Like
Yeah.
at times it was boring because Lewis was always like dominating
I will like.
until the recent years where Max finally got to like.
So 2017, 2018 was the closest years that Ferrari and Red Bull came. 2018 specifically, Red Bull had a pretty decent car, not good reliability though. But those were the years that like you really saw like, oh, here's Bottas winning, here's Hamilton winning, here's Vettel winning. Then in 2018, somehow fucking Raikkonen won. Raikkonen wins, and here's Verstappen and what's his name, Daniel winning. There's all these drivers that had a chance of winning. Even in 2018, like it was pretty good. Force India had a pretty decent. This is when they hit like a lot of financial troubles, and this is before Racing Point. But they were like a pretty decent car. So like, okay, now you had Force India maybe getting a podium. McLaren, they were still crap, and everyone else was still
Midfield.
bad. Midfield, yeah. I would say the big player, Alfa Romeo was the first year they did pretty good. That was when Leclerc was the rookie. So, I mean, the midfield, they almost want to step down from like being close. Because I can't remember who else was good at that time. Renault was decent around those years, but they never got a podium. That's when Sainz was there.
I feel like Renault has always been like
they've always been on like that edge of like
the midfield, like top midfield kind of ish. No,
like
Renault and
midfield was a word. They are midfield. Like they've always been like
mid.
Mid. Just like not. They're just not there. And
But then I feel like recently with this past season, like they did somewhat better because they did better than McLaren, right?
2021 was the year that like they actually did pretty good. They won a race, but that was kind of they got really lucky. Then Alonso got a podium by like pure pace, so that was impressive. Now he got some luck with like some retires, like Perez was further down the field, almost got him. Should have got a podium, but whatever. Alonso did pretty good. 2020 last year they actually had a really good car, I thought, and last year was like the race where the year that they were on top, but reliability got to them.
Yeah,
and I think honestly Alonso should have stayed because he
kind of carried the team.
No? He kind of yeah. I mean, S1's good, but it's not.
Because I think like stat wise or whatever, like Esteban had like better points or something, but like the reliability of Alonso's like car
just
messed his like it messed him up.
No, but like
I don't know.
Gets me so mad. Like at least 2021 and like all the Renault years, the cars look so good. The yellow and the black, like for looking so good and always being like half decent. It's like, bro, like you just need that like little extra like bump.
They just need to go back to the blue and yellow, and then that's when they'll start winning.
But now they have the pink sponsorship.
It looks okay. I think it looks alright.
That's sort of like Aston Martin, right?
Yes.
So they used to have the BWT sponsorship where Force India they were always pink, and then they were green and pink, and it kind of didn't work. But
green and pink,
yeah, it was weird. But the reason why they had that is because the guy, Otmar Szafnauer, he is the team principal for Alpine, and he used to be for Aston Martin. And
I remember
before, and he was kind of like the genius guy. He had worked on Honda engines. I don't think Mercedes. He had been at Force India for a long time. He's part of the reason why that team was like why it is the way it is. They would make those like crazy judgment calls and like, they would make strategy calls that would get them to the front, and he was really good at that. And honestly, like ever since he left, they just been kind of like going down. 2021, they had a decent car. 2022, like you just saw, like the team does not look happy. No, the only one that looks happy there is Stroll, but that's
because he gets to drive.
He gets the free ride.
Like he's just,
and he's like a decent driver now, but I feel like that's not fair. Like if you're obviously if you stay in Formula One for long enough, like you're gonna get used to the cars and you're gonna be a decent driver. And I don't think that's fair because he was all right. He got a podium his first year, but he got pretty lucky with that podium. That was like when Baku that year, like everyone crashed. So that's like when Perez and Ocon were fighting. That's when the Red Bulls took each other out. So like, oh no, that was the year later. That's when Hamilton and
Verstappen.
No, Vettel hit each other.
I don't know about that, but
yeah,
okay.
you gotta catch up. But under the safety car, Hamilton kind of slowed down. Vettel hit the back of him. Got mad and pulled the side of him, and then hit him with his car. I think it was on accident. But he got a penalty for that. So he got a 5-second penalty. He had to come in and serve that penalty. And then Hamilton's headrest came undone. So he had to pit too and get it fixed. So then they both got in the same part of the track and had to come back like at the same time. But this was like 5 laps to go.
Oh damn.
So like they just had no chance. And then that was 2017, and then I think who was at the top? That's when like Ricardo won that race. Who was second? I think second may have been Bottas.
2017.
Yeah, I can look it up real quick.
I don't know where my mouse is.
You could switch it back to your beautiful. Yeah, but I mean. That race was wild. Who won? Yeah, Bottas was second, then Stroll was third. When I was doing like a lot of sim racing and stuff, I had a friend that was Canadian, and he absolutely hated him because he was like, his daddy's money got him into Formula One. Clearly, like, was not that good compared to Massa, who was like, it was his 15th year in Formula One. Like, this man, like, is old. Like, he's not even fast anymore. And he's still whooping your ass. Like, come on, buddy. And that was, like, one of 2 times he scored points. Although, I will give him credit. He's got second in qualifying later that year at Monza when it was wet. So, he's decent in the wet. But then he went to Force India, and then Perez just wiped the floor with him, which I loved. But, yeah, only 14 people finished out of 20.
Force India. After Force India, they became Racing Point.
Yeah. The 2020 car was not like that one. 2020 and 2018 were pretty nice. But 2020 that's when they copied Mercedes.
Why was it? Oh, because Stroll was coming in is why Perez went to Red Bull, right? Or
no, Vettel got signed to them.
Okay.
Because he was leaving Ferrari and everyone was like, no.
Because Sainz was signed.
Well, he got... So Vettel got dropped by Ferrari. Then immediately after, like, everyone wanted Vettel because he's still 4-time champ. He was still good. So then Racing Point signed him. And they were already, like, planning on becoming Aston Martin. And it was really upsetting because Perez had like a 3-year contract with them. So he was out of drive, and then Sainz got signed with Ferrari. Everything just like was already filled up. It was really late in the year when this happened. So it was like he just had nowhere to go. And then the only spot that was open was Red Bull, and I think maybe Haas had a seat. Like Williams, but he didn't want to go there.
Red Bull at the time had Albon?
Because after Perez got dropped by McLaren in 2013, he was kind of lost. But he got found Force India. He liked the team, and he wanted to build up the team. So he started building this team around him.
Like he was doing good.
He was doing good, and the team was doing good. They were getting better every season. 2020, they got even better. He won his first race. But, I mean, again, he won the race after he was dropped. But
that was the year with the, like, Mercedes car, right? Or
yeah,
like
they copied Mercedes. I mean... It's not legal.
No.
So, or wasn't illegal. It's illegal now. But you know what they did? They had cameras that had like with 3D imaging, and they would take photos of the car as it was going through pit lane. So they 3D scanned the car.
That's pretty smart.
That's like that's a big brain. And then they just copied the car. Of course, they didn't do the DOS. But,
yeah. That's pretty cool though. Actually,
so he built the whole team around him, and then like he knew if he went to Haas or if he went to Williams, like he'd have to do that, and that's like a 5-year process. It's not quick, which is probably Albon's going to do with Williams if he doesn't get dropped.
I think that's why like Daniel didn't want to go to Haas too, like to help build up.
Yeah, I mean, like at some point in your career, like you just can't stay there for a really long time. A really good example of this where it works out for the driver is Weber. So he started off at a small team, Minardi, which later became Toro Rosso, which is now AlphaTauri. He started off there, did okay. Then he went to Jaguar, which was like that was the last time Ford was in F1 with Jaguar because they owned them. And he was there, and he kind of quickly realized that, like, this team is booty cheeks. Like, it's not going to work out. So then, what's his next step? All right, I got to get to a big team. So he goes to Williams, who at that time, they had been fighting for the championship for a couple of years. He gets there, and he quickly realizes, like, they have a shit car. It's not good. He went to Williams, realized that their car was, like, booty cheeks, pretty much, because they had a really good engine. The car was okay, but the thing that like fucked them over a lot, this is when everyone switched over to 7-speed transmissions. And it's really good for like starts and like exiting quarters. And there was multiple times where he qualified really high up, but the start he just gets overtaken by everyone because they don't have enough gears. And like that really screwed him over. And this is so the first year he did okay. I think he got a podium. Second year, that's when Rosberg came in, and then they all started liking Rosberg. So he had to get out of here, and like there was no teams available. The only team that was like open really was Red Bull, and they were like the brand new team. They were the party team. No one took him seriously. So
was Vettel already with Red Bull at the time?
He has been signed with them, but he hadn't driven for them yet. So he goes to Red Bull 2007, and then he starts building up the team around him, and then it's kind of weird. At that time, they had a weird rule where teams could use the same car. So Red Bull outsourced their car building to a different company called Red Bull Technologies. And then Toro Rosso and Red Bull both bought the cars from them. So they had the same car, but Toro Rosso had Ferrari engines and Red Bull had Renault engines. And I mean, the Red Bull got all the updates first and then would go to Toro Rosso. But they essentially had the same car. And Vettel joined halfway through 2007. And there's a funny story where him and Weber were both going to get a podium in Japan because it was like pouring rain. They both did really well. But Vettel didn't see Weber in the rain, and they were under safety car, and they crashed into him and took them both out. And they lost a double podium for the teams, which is...
Sounds like a Ferrari story.
It sounds like a Ferrari story. So then, they were building the team around Weber because, like, you know, the personnel and people on the team were used to him, but everyone on, like, they're building the cars kind of around Vettel too because it was he's driving the same car so that they can get how he drives. And then slowly, like, sure enough, after a couple years with Red Bull, now they got like a championship contending car, and now he's winning races. Now he's doing really good with his career. And I was like, that's a good story of where, like, going with a small team and, like, building them up works out. And that was really good, and that's what Perez wanted to do. And I think they had the capability to do it, but then they lost their main driver who they were building around. And then they got Vettel, who was supposed to build them up, and then he retires. Now they got Alonso, and you can already tell he doesn't want to be there. I don't think anyone wants to be there.
Especially with Stroll.
I mean, he's not like...
I feel like he's matured.
Has he really, though?
What do you think, like, after a season, Alonso will, like, switch again? Or do you think he'll, like, retire again?
I honestly think he's just waiting for, like... He's trying to get what that, like... The team that, like, all of a sudden becomes the next big team. Because not, like... you're not gonna see it now, but like eventually, the next year or two, like once teams like are starting to really get restricted by their budget caps, like for like all the big teams, then you're gonna see like, because the regulations have been out for like since 2018, 2019. So teams have been able to work on their cars for some time now, like for their first cars, and then they brought the budget caps after. So like I think there was probably big loopholes where Red Bull, I guarantee you, on that first car, and Mercedes and Ferrari, maybe some other teams spent way more than $150 million developing it because they had an extra year, and then that was before the budget caps that were going to be implemented for that year. So like maybe they could get away with like the regulation. So, I think that's why they're doing so good now, and they had time to like really flesh out their ideas, where all the other teams are like still figuring out their way. Even like that's why Haas did so good, because they came out and like flat out said like halfway through 2020 like they're focusing everything on this new regulation, and it worked out for them in like the first 10 races. They were pretty good. Then they slowly fell back because they didn't have enough money to continue. Well, they did have enough money, but they admitted themselves that they were waiting for upgrades to like make sure that these upgrades work, because you don't have a lot, and you need to make sure that they work. And they had a trouble in 2019, but they had a really good base car, and they upgraded it, and it made the car worse or undrivable. So it was like, what do we do? And they just kept upgrading it from there, and it was getting worse or better. Like it didn't help. And I think it wasn't until like more than halfway through the season where they literally just came up with the base car and realized like this car is the best version out of all of these. And then they started like upgrading, but then like, well, fuck it, we'll just wait till next season. All right.
Because you could say, or can you say that's how it was with like Ferrari last season? Because I read it on like Twitter. I don't know if it's like true or not, but like supposedly like halfway through the season they were just like, all right, like we're just gonna start like thinking about next year's car instead of like pushing for the championship.
I would have done the same thing. I think what could have happened. I'm not saying this is for sure, but like maybe they ran out of they realized like they're running out of their upgrades and like money for this season. So like they have nothing else to do but focus on the next season, because it's like we're already like tried too hard to like catch up,
and it's not working.
It's like not working, and it's clearly like they're faster. So let's just cut it here and take the loss.
This is our year.
This is our year.
You better fucking do good this year.
So, what do you think about the car launches?
About the who?
The car launches.
Oh, okay. First came what's his face? Haas, right?
Yeah.
Haas was. It looks okay to me. Like the black is nice.
I mean, I think it's gonna be one of those cars where like once you see it on track, okay, it's gonna look better.
Because it's just what's it called? It's just like
the renderings.
Yeah, the renderings.
And that's like one thing. When Mercedes launched their car for last year, they launched it with a completely different car than they showed up to testing with. Like the show car that they brought, that wasn't like the generic show car. Looked really nice, but then they got into testing and it looked very different. And then they got to the second week of testing and it was a completely different car. So it was just like they were really trying to hide what they had brought. Then they realized it kind of didn't work. So, I mean, it does work, but I think according to like Hamilton, it was just like the optimum window to get that car working was so small that getting there was so hard. Like it just, the one time that they got it was Brazil, and that's when they did really good. That's when Russell won. So I mean, I think they have a good car. They just got to figure it out.
The whole like no side pod things.
Yeah, there's another team that's done it before, but this was like way back in the 90s, and that car was not good. Who else is bars?
The next was Red Bull.
There's
not much to say about Red Bull. Like,
but I mean,
it looks nice.
It's always looked
Yeah,
nice.
it's always looked nice.
But I mean, you mentioned that the old ones look better.
Yeah, I think that the one Vettel and Weber drove.
Have you seen the 2013 one?
2013.
Full 2013.
2013.
Put in the screen.
Yeah.
You can't just like drag it over.
No, because like this is full screened, so it would just like drag in behind it. You know what I'm saying? So I have to like back that out first. We have to figure this out next time.
So this is the cars I saw in person, but it was like purple and the blue.
See, like that, that looks so nice.
Like you like it, like the clean design.
Yeah.
A lot of people weren't a fan of these cars. They didn't like how it was nice and like sleek.
Mm-hmm.
Because now, I mean, they're kind of getting back to that. Because they got rid of like most of like the little winglets and shit.
Winglets.
You want wings, huh?
What? No, I'm saying like what winglets?
Like you
The
know
things on the that were
so right here, this is called a barge board.
Okay.
These are the side pods.
Mhm.
Now, with the races we were watching not that long ago, they had like little wings coming out.
Yeah,
here.
I know.
And then more recently, they've had all the wings like in front of here.
Oh, okay.
Do you remember like 2021, the old cars?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but now
Yeah.
like that's gone, and all you see is like the floor. It's only the floors that are there,
Mm-hmm.
and then they have the side pod. Now you get some like stuff like that now, but it looks, for the most part, they look pretty clean. Although I've always been a fan of like the high noses. I thought those looked pretty nice.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we're like they're
It's like raised
yeah,
up,
yeah, I know.
and then now they're kind of like, my dad said they look like Indy cars, but
Because they just go like
straight down.
and then you have the front.
Yeah, which was always like a problem because it would come up and they didn't have the halo. But now you have the halo, so
Mhm.
that's not really the issue anymore. So
Yeah, this just looks so
yeah.
like the purple, the blue. This just like pops, you know, like
It looks better
yeah.
because it's not matte. It's
And then like the yellow doesn't come up as much as it does like now, which I think looks a little bit better.
oh, look up the 2008 Toro Rosso. But you get like it's the whole side is the Red Bull.
Yeah,
Like I thought those were always like
that
cool.
looks pretty cool.
And then you have like the horn on the side. Those always were like nice to me. I love these cars too. Like these are. I mean, you saw like the video. They're so much smaller.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think the smaller like
And that's
cars
also
look
what I
nice.
have written down here is too big is not.
Too big.
Well, yeah. Are the cars too big? No. And you mentioned it before that you don't like how big they are.
I don't like watching the older races, like just the older races in general. They looked so much faster. But then you said that might have been because of the like angle of the camera, or
Well, the FOV on the cameras were a lot higher, but even in 2010 was the first year they got HD cameras, and they
Mhm.
switched it to how it is now. So even like the 2010 race that we were watching, that's like how they look now, but they just look faster. And I think it's also because like the gimbals that they have, it's smoother now, but before it was like bouncy and like
Mhm.
very skittish. So
it just made it look like faster.
like they're going
Yeah.
pretty fast.
But I don't like how big the cars now are. Like I feel like it makes it look harder to just get around someone. Like
I mean, you remember like when we went to the event, it was just like
yeah.
tiny, and then
Mhm.
like no protection.
Well, I haven't been next to
Yeah, we got to stand next to him.
I'm trying
So
to
like
think
we
of
saw like
the more like modern one.
the signs one that was huge
Mhm.
compared to like the Senna ones from before, and even like when my dad, he went to Phoenix in 90, 91,
Mhm.
and he said that like they were just, it was like go-karts. They just were going 150 miles an hour around like a street circuit, but they were
In tiny ass.
like the front of the car was like the wall right there, and like, you know, this was how wide it was. I mean, they were pretty wide. Like they were so really short and wide. They're as wide as they are now, but so they were like squares. That's why they said go-karts. All right, so who's the next person that launched?
Williams.
Williams.
It was the same for the most part, right? Like, I can pull it up.
Everyone's talking about their driver suits. Are they like? I haven't seen it yet.
I didn't have the 2023.
Yeah, that's a beautiful car too.
I can't see where the line is at. I'm at the 0. I'm at
2, just 2.
there we go.
Like it's a really good car. Everyone thought that they were gonna have the Golf livery.
Oh yeah, I saw that a lot online. It looks nice, but
Yeah, I feel like right now they don't have a main sponsor yet, so it's just like, it's just Williams blue,
and
and it
then
looks
of course just the Duracell, like
that's smart. I love like the tiny little lines that they have on the top. I don't know if that's like from the car, but looks nice. And then like they got a few more sponsors this year. Just
for the most part, it's kind of like the old.
There's some main differences that like I've seen pointed out online, but I mean, it looks the same from the livery.
But I think it looks nice. Like,
I mean, yeah, it's good.
It's a nice blue.
I think it's a little bit brighter than last year.
I can see it. Yeah.
They also took off a lot of the paint to save weight.
Oh, that makes sense.
Like the car was pretty much black at the end of the season, but I think they may have got it better. And then we got
Alfa Romeo.
I think you really like Alfa Romeo.
Alfa Romeo was.
I mean.
Oh, you wanted to look at the racing suits though, huh?
That's fine. We'll get it next time. I heard these are really nice too. I've watched that guy for like the past 8 years, 9 years maybe.
Okay.
This is gonna be small too.
Oh
you gotta click on it and then go open it.
Like open.
No. Go.
Oh, I get you.
Click on the image.
Sorry, I'm not tech savvy.
I don't think you're just.
Okay.
This is better. You can zoom in. Oh,
it's better. This one. Like this.
It's gonna be the same size.
No, but I'm saying the angle.
Oh. Yeah. So one main thing that people have noticed is that right there, the top inlet is double stacked. They've had this design in the past.
This thing, right?
Yeah. Okay. So they've had that design in the past, and it's always like, I think it will work. You see this type of design a lot in like Le Mans. You've seen they brought it before, but I'm sure there was a reason why they didn't use it. And I think maybe this time, because Ferrari changed the way that their turbos are shaped. So they went from remember how I was explaining that there's the single turbo that they have, and then Mercedes always had a split turbo. So they have the shaft in the middle, which uses the generator unit as well in the middle, get more power. It works really well, but it's really, really complicated. Ferrari had a single, now they've went to that double. And that's why you've seen this big performance boost. And they're doing really well now. Everyone's kind of switching to that split turbo design, which is going to go pointless in a few years anyway. But so I think it's doing that because if you notice the way it's shaped, it's going straight to the back. And then they've also changed the way the rear is shaped. So this is very wide, and the inlets at the back are really wide. So probably for better cooling. And they've also copied that Ferrari shape of the side pods.
They're using a Ferrari engine, yes?
Yes.
Like them, Haas, just them and Haas.
Them and Haas.
So for the most part, they do kind of follow Ferrari's design too, right? Because
Ferrari doesn't have that.
Okay.
So Haas is the one that more that copies Ferrari. Alfa Romeo usually has their own designs, which I like. But now they're slightly owned by Audi. So it's kind of weird. I think Ferrari's going to stop helping them now. Because this is the point where they don't want to give them information.
Because
They
I
have
was just gonna
engines.
be like, oh damn, Ferrari's doing this.
Yeah. So I mean, you could tell like the front wing's very different from Ferrari. The side pod looks kind of the same, but
Ferrari's was a lot more
wider.
yeah.
So it just worked out. I didn't get the pause here for a second.
That is Malik Beasley. This one?
Yeah. There we go.
So I keep moving them.
Actually, so look C38 sour.
How am I spelling that?
UBER.
B?
BER. Sour.
Oh, Saab.
So this was this is they've always kind of had this design. This is the same design that they've had before. They didn't have this last season.
Uh-huh.
So this is something that they've used. Damn, I missed it. Like, this is my favorite right here.
That's nice.
Like, it has the blue and the red and it was a little more darker. I like the one that Leclerc was in, but these look better.
Leclerc, there was like a darker red when Leclerc was there, right? Or...
It was smaller.
Oh.
It looked different. But yeah, so they've had this design before. And I think the reason why they're going back to this design is because they're trying to implement the best cooling out of like... Because this is the year that like Ferrari started getting caught with their cheating. So they kind of... It was different.
Ferrari caught their cheating?
Yeah.
They were cheating?
Mm-hmm.
When?
with their engines. So... 2017, 2018, they got really, like, their engines became really good. Way better than Mercedes. And, like, it was only at certain times. Like, it's hard to explain. Like, sometimes their engines would be good. Sometimes they wouldn't. And they found out that the regulators that they were using for the fuel and the oil burn, that they found a way to bypass them, but it had to be specific ones. Like, it had to work in certain situations. And they figured a way around this, and they were able to get more fuel into the engine, get more power. So this is why they were really good after 2016. They just had a really strong engine. That's why Leclerc won his 2 races at Spa and Monza, because they just had really good straight line speed. And everyone kind of noticed that, like, hey, like, they're kind of getting really fast out of nowhere. And, like, they haven't radically changed their engines. How is this possible? And then Red Bull brought a whole report to the FIA that said, like, hey, we're not saying that they're doing this, but here's how they would do it. Like, they fully proved that, like, their system is cheatable. And FIA looked at this, went to Ferrari, and Ferrari was like, come with me. And they went behind closed doors and made a deal. Ferrari became really slow. They couldn't do it anymore. And they, quote unquote, were going to help FIA regulate to make sure no one did this anymore. So they got around cheating.
Well, not really in a sense, because they still lost. Like...
Yeah. Well, they still lost, but, like, they weren't punished. That's why, like,
I thought this was supposed to be the silent floor.
You know, people are stupid. But I don't think you're going to hear him anyway.
Huh?
You won't hear him
on
these microphones. But that's, like, that's why people were, like, upset, because the last team that was caught cheating was McLaren and Ferrari. When McLaren was apparently stealing documents, but it was just one employee, and McLaren didn't even have, like, access to the documents. It was just one guy, and Ferrari didn't get punished, even though they were the ones that leaked it to him. McLaren got punished $100 million, which could be argued is why they're kind of like crap now, because they got demoted. Money, like. That's a lot of money. Yeah. Which, I mean, it is, but like they're also spending like $300 million a year at the time. And that's why like people were so upset with, like, okay, you have this one team that was caught cheating but didn't really benefit from it, fined $100 million. You got Ferrari literally like cheating, like gaining an advantage, doesn't get penalized. Well, they do, but it doesn't really affect them from their past results. You got Red Bull, who goes over a couple $1 million. Like, not, I mean, you could say it's a lot, but like compared to how much they're spending, it's not a lot. And most of it, they even admitted, was like catering. Didn't do anything for the teams, like to like for performance.
It's food. They do better when they're
eating. Have you seen like their motorhomes?
I've seen not Red Bulls, but I've seen like inside Ferraris, I think, before.
Look up the Red Bull power station. So in Monaco, they show up. Okay, the big building on the right, they set that up at every race weekend. That's that's their temporary building. It's all stuffed into like semis. No, they don't. All like the away races in like Australia, the United States, they have to provide them with like hospitality, like similar to this, but like permanent, and like so they can use it something similar. But when they're in Europe, that's what they bring. And then in Monaco, there's a pool somewhere in here. I don't know where it's at. It might be behind this building. But like all this is for Red Bull, and this is all paid for by them, and they've had this since 2007 or 2006, 2005. Like, this is where they lost all their money, like spent the money on. Which I mean, like,
that's valid.
Yeah,
that's nice as fuck. Are we cursing?
Huh?
Is cursing fine?
Huh?
Cursing.
Yeah, cursing.
Okay.
No, so my dad, he had in 2011, he had a cruise that went from Spain, went around Europe to like Italy, and then it ended up in Monaco. And the way that it was set up was like that the Sunday they left was the week, like the race day for Spain, and then the week that they ended was the race day in Monaco. So my dad went to Spain early, went to the whole weekend, got to see them race in Spain, and then they were supposed to end up in Monaco, and he was gonna buy tickets to Monaco. But see all these big fucking boats?
Yeah.
It was so packed they couldn't park here. So they had to go further down the coast into France. And he didn't get to see Monaco. That's one place we still want to go.
What year was it?
2011.
2011. Who won 2011?
Oh, Red Bull. Red Bull won from 2010, 2013. But that's when they had 24 cars. So they had 4 more cars than they have now, and they're all running around Monaco. Being fucking crazy. Yeah. I think that was... Well, he didn't know it at the time, but that's when Perez had his really big accident. And he wasn't going to race, so like... He couldn't do it, so... Well, it's fine.
Does your dad have a favorite driver?
Perez.
Okay.
Like, he loves Perez because I was the first Mexican driver in like such a long time. And, I mean, you know, we both cried when he won. Like, I remember waking up that day. Like, when he first joined, like, it was big because it was, you know, Mexican, but he was at a small team. He wasn't doing much. Then in 2012, that's when he popped off, and, like, he started getting podiums. And he was challenging, like, really good guys with his cars. Like, and Sauber had a decent car, but, like, they shouldn't be. You know, like, in Malaysia, he was trying to pass Alonso for the win. Shouldn't be doing that in a Sauber, right? And like, he was just really good, and he had contracts with Ferrari that he was going to go there in 2014. And I mean, we found that out later, but like, we kind of knew that he was going to go to Ferrari, and we like, he's our guy. Like, he's finally doing good. Like, there's someone from the Americas that's finally doing good on their own, and people didn't like him because he was a pay driver. He was Mexican. People didn't like him, and then he started doing really, really good. Then he went to McLaren, and McLaren had a shit car. And then they dropped him after 1 year, which was, like, fucked up. But, you know, it's Formula One. That's why, like, when he got dropped by Racing Point, I mean, he wasn't as upset because it's happened to him before. He knows that can happen.
It's a business, kind of.
It's a business. And so he wasn't that upset. He was upset, but he understands why. And then he went to Racing Point. or Force India at the time, and then he got more podiums and was always doing good. And when he finally won, it was just like we had been waiting so long to see him win, and we thought he was done because he wasn't signed by Red Bull yet.
Mm-hmm.
We thought this was his last year to like do anything, and then like the first lap he gets taken out. We thought he was over, and he slowly starts
Because he
coming
got
up.
last to first, right?
Yeah, he went last to first, and like as he's coming across the line, like we're yelling like yeah, like finally, and like we just hugged and like we're both crying. My aunt from Mexico was like, "¿Qué pasó, mijo? What's happening?" And then we explained to her like, it's like I know, like he won, like he finally won.
Mm-hmm.
And then like they start playing the national anthem, and like my aunt's fucking singing because she's from Mexico, and like they do like the whole shit. And my dad's like he doesn't know it, but he's like he's crying, and like you just see like Perez crying, and it's like everyone was there except I don't know if anyway, like my whole family was pretty much there,
Mm-hmm.
and like we're all just like watching because from us like they could tell this is a big moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then he finally gets signed by Red Bull, and we're just like happy. And then like he wins in Baku. I was not home at the time, but I called my dad right away. We were both like just so happy. And then when he started winning again recently, it was like, again, like you just like for me, like you just want to like cry in excitement because it's so exciting because you saw this guy that was dropped by Red Bull, or not dropped by Red Bull, to McLaren. And he made his way up, and he did it on his own.
Mm-hmm.
Now he has like sponsorship money, which is helpful, but he got there with his own talent. Now I'm not saying he's better than like Verstappen. He's not, but I think 2022 kind of proved that like Perez can be there when he makes mistakes, and Verstappen can't. Like 2021 showed that he can make mistakes throughout the season, and if I think this year, like the only way that Perez is going to win a championship is if there's other teams like Ferrari and Mercedes gunning for the champion. Like he's going to need like Hamilton, Russell, Verstappen, like all of them fighting for wins, and he has to take that occasional like time where they kind of like mess up. Maybe he gets like 2 or 3 wins out of the season, but it's enough that like he gets enough podiums that just carries him to like the end, and he just has to pray that they take each other out or something. That's how he's going to win.
Because he can't just be like going against Verstappen on his own. Like he needs
like
the
Saudi Arabia was the one time that like he actually was faster than him, but he pushed too hard at the beginning because he was trying to do good, messed up his tires, and then they made a bad strategy call, which it was a safety car, so like he couldn't really predict it. But it was that was the one time like where we thought like he had a chance. Then Verstappen got in his groove and just took off like a ship. But so I think it's AlphaTauri this
Saturday? Yeah. And then I'm not sure who's after that. I just know Valentine's Day, Ferrari. Just be me and Ferrari on Valentine's Day.
Bro, Charles Leclerc's about to be so broken. He's gonna get a text that day and just be like, "Hey, baby, I miss you." Okay.
But they didn't really say like who broke up with who, huh? Like,
they just were like, "Hey, like we're gonna go back to being friends," and like she still has all of her posts of like him, so I don't think they're like done. But
yeah, but next is AlphaTauri Saturday. Or the 11th. The 11th is Saturday, right?
Yeah.
Because the 12th is Super Bowl. And then Monday is McLaren and Aston Martin. Tuesday, Ferrari. Wednesday, Mercedes. And Thursday, Alpine. Alpine, yes.
Alpine. Bro, it's whatever. Okay. That's it.
Do we have to like close it out, or are we just...
Well, Devin has to stop recording.
No, but like, do we say something to close it out? That's all. That's copyright.
That's all, folks. Do you have anything else that you're looking forward to?
Honestly, just the car launches for now. When are we gonna do this again? Like
We'll figure out a time. This is Nate.
Oh yeah. My name is Nathan or Nate.
Nate. He's new to Formula One. My name is Richard. I've been watching since before I was born.
Goddamn.
And there's a funny story. My mom was pregnant with my brother. My dad made her go to F1 in Indianapolis. I mean, she was only like a month pregnant, so it wasn't like. But he still went. So
he's like, we're going.
We're going. Yeah. My dad, he loves Formula One, and all my siblings love, or at least care about it a little bit.
I got my mom into it, so because she watches
Max Verstappen.
Max Verstappen.
Okay, well, thank you for watching.